Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Transition Bridge podcast. This is Debbie, your host, and this is the podcast where we come together each and every week to discover more about the purpose and the power of life's transitions. Well, today's episode is sponsored by Amy Throw, a leading consultant and image coach with Cabby. It's a unique women's collection that is effortless, thoughtfully designed, and helps women move more confidently through every season in life. Amy works with women to create style that reconnects to them to who they are and to who they are becoming. And I've been a fan for years. So if you're watching my YouTube channel, you could see the beauty of the collection. And please connect with Amy and browse the collection with the link found below in the show notes. And so I want to ask you a question today. Have you ever thought about your financial DNA? What do you feel when you hear that money isn't a math problem, but it's a behavioral problem? Well, for me, that opens my thinking about finances, and I am curious as to how my behavior is actually the driver behind my financial decisions. And so, for that reason, I invited my guest, Ted McLyman, and he is here to help us understand this process. Ted is a behavioral finance expert, and he helps people align their money decisions with how humans actually think, feel, and act, especially under stress and uncertainty. And he shares that his time in the Marine Corps as a lieutenant colonel, I'm going to say that again. And before I do, Ted, am I saying your last name correctly? I meant to ask you that.
Yep,
Is it
you got it. It's
McLyman?
Lyman with a Mick.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm going to start this part again. And he shares in his time in the Marine Corps as a lieutenant colonel, it taught him that even the best tactical plans fail if it doesn't account for how people actually behave under pressure. And this was the insight that ultimately helped him to leave traditional finance and move into behavioral finance, where the real drivers of decision making can be addressed. Ted is also a best-selling author and the co-founder of Dream Smart Behavioral Systems, and he's specializing in helping individuals and organizations discover their unique money temperament, and he guides them towards better financial choices through his innovative money behavior system. Well, Ted, it's a real honor to have you here on the Transition Bridge podcast, and I also want to first thank you for your service to our country.
Debbie, it is such a pleasure to be here. And thank you so much. And I'll tell you, the Marine Corps was probably the most important decision I made in my life. Some days are more exciting than others, but I do look back with great pride serving this country.
Well, thank you so much. You made a difference for us, and we appreciate your sacrifice. And so tell us your story, Ted. You learned some things when you were in the military, besides all of your responsibilities. You learned something about finance, which became the pivot, became the transitional moment for you.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit about my background. I grew up in a middle-class family in upstate New York, a little town called Cortland, which is noted for its snow and dairy cows. When I went to college, I was first introduced to people actually behaving a little differently than money than I'd been taught. For me, I started working as soon as I could hold a snow shovel. When I graduated, my goal was to chase some sunshine, get some money for graduate school, and maybe see the world. And my solution was to take a commission in the United States Marine Corps. Now, it wasn't happenstance. My grandfather was a Marine in World War I. My dad was in the Navy, so it just was a good fit.
Sure.
But honestly, I wanted to find some sunshine. Well, as it would be, the Marine Corps had the foresight to send me to Hawaii for my first duty station. I was
Nice.
introduced to primary colors, sunscreen, sunglasses, but more importantly, a very exciting and diverse economy with a lot of tourists and a lot of young Marines doing some really crazy things with money, to include myself.
Okay.
There, I learned firsthand that what I learned in school, because I'm classically trained in economics and finance, that what I learned in the classroom just wasn't really translating into real life. I had Marines who were doing all kinds of crazy things with money, and myself included. newly married, had a young child. And I was tasked with actually helping Marines make better choices. And I got a little conflicted because everything was reactive, not proactive. Well, to fast forward a couple of years, I put in a letter to get out of the Marine Corps. And to my surprise, I found out I was an indentured servant. I served at the behest of the president, and he thought I should go to Japan. So my wife, young child, we moved to Japan, lived on the economy, interacted with the Japanese, and here's what I found out. The Japanese, in a different culture, behave the same way we do with money. They also make crazy decisions. They're also influenced by their environment. They're also influenced by marketing.
Mhm.
Well, from there, I had the opportunity to go to graduate school at Pepperdine, and my payback was teaching economics at the Naval Academy. Now, to be very honest, some of my econ professors are probably doing pinwheels right now, knowing I was doing that. But regardless, in the classroom, I was finding my mids, some of the smartest young people in the United States were actually acing my material. However, we found they were failing in life,
Mm.
that what we're teaching in the classroom was not translating to their real experience once they got out into the fleet, either in the Navy or the Marine Corps. Now, you have to understand, as a Naval Academy or a Service Academy student, most everything's taken care of. You don't have to make a lot of money decisions. You have no debt when you get out. So the knee-jerk reaction from a lot of the young lieutenants and ensign was to try to cram, well, maybe about 4 years of college experience into about 6 months spending money and doing crazy things. What we were finding from the feedback from the fleet that it was causing domestic problems,
Oh,
behavioral problems, performance problems, security problems, retention problems. It just goes on and on and on. And the catalyst was just bad money behavior. Well, we were tasked at the Naval Academy to come up with a program to fix it. And we took a very conventional, traditional approach. We're going to teach you how to be a better budgeter. We're going to teach you some more math. We're
mhm.
going to give you some more technical skills. And by having those technical skills, because you're all bright people, you're going to figure it out. Well, how do you think that worked out? It didn't. Once I left with a new feeling that what I'd spend my time learning about, I needed to start questioning it. Did some other
Mhm.
Marine Corps things, build a schoolhouse, was the head of Marine Corps training management. And there I knew that as a trainer, we focused on behavior. We focused on how people interacted with their environment, how to get good outcomes by focusing on what made the student unique. But I also went, why aren't we doing this with money?
Yeah, good question.
Went overseas, came back, picked up another degree, and ended up as an aide to the Secretary of the Navy for financial management. Cool.
Very cool.
There, I learned that our political class really does not understand money at all.
I
And
agree.
I knew something had to change.
Hmm.
At that point, I retired and I said, I've got all the skills. I've been working with people and money my entire life. I'm going to go out and make a difference. So I became a licensed registered investment advisor. Brand new, went out there and I became an independent advisor with a couple of companies, and I was very good at it. However, here's what I discovered. Maybe a little cynical, but most of the firms I worked with really didn't care about the outcome of the people we were working with. The client outcome only really mattered if you had a couple commas in your net worth.
Hmm.
That my
Hmm.
job was really to sell stuff, not necessarily help you be better with your money or better behavior. And that bothered me. And it came to a head when I had an argument with one of my vice presidents as a district manager, and they wanted me to offer a new product to my market, and I knew it didn't fit. I knew nobody it qualified for, and they didn't care. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, and I said, I've got to do something different. So I stepped out on my own and started my own firm, Apex Behavioral Solutions Group. And our commitment was to start managing behavior instead of money.
Well, that's a radical
Because the
idea,
two
isn't
years,
it?
oh, absolutely. A lot of people didn't understand what I was doing. Why would you walk away with what you're doing? This was the traditional way of doing things. I was getting awards and all that kind of stuff, but I wasn't fulfilled and I wasn't helping my clients. I learned during those first 2 years that my job was actually to manage behavior, not money. managing money is actually pretty easy. It's just kind of a plug and chug. And
Mm-hmm.
now it's even easier with AI and the modern tools
Oh, sure.
that advisors, and most people don't know this, don't actually manage your money. What they do is they put you into products and services, and somebody else generally does that. And what they do is they get paid for kind of holding your hand, maybe. And I don't want to be overly cynical because there's some really good people in the industry. But the point being is the focus was always product and service, not outcome. And about 10 years ago, there was a bit of an economic meltdown, and I saw it coming. So I wrote my first book for my clients. It was called Money Makes Me Crazy. And it was my reflections of just working with hundreds of people,
Mhm.
just like everybody that's listening or watching this podcast, make really dubious decisions with their money.
Mhm.
And I gave them kind of a roadmap to follow to be more successful. And it worked and they loved it. And we started using this as the foundation of our practice. And the book was picked up by a gentleman by the name of J. Alexander Martin. He's one of the founders of the FUBU Corporation. Damon Jane from Shark Tank, Damon
Okay.
Johns, I'm sorry, from Shark Tank was his partner. And Jay gave me a call. He said he read my first book and we needed to get together. And after talking with Jay, I found out that he'd burnt through about $8 million in the course of about 5 or 6 years with nothing to show for it,
Mm.
behaving in a way he thought his folks wanted him to behave, not the way he felt he should behave. Now, let me
Uh,
clarify that again. He was
yeah.
behaving the way culture mandated, the way his
Mm-hmm.
community mandated, not the way he was actually wired. And it cost him a lot of money.
That's a
Well,
lot
as
of
a
money.
result, he and I collaborated on a couple of books, wrote another book in between, probably in the early, about 5 or 6 years ago. And then last year, I got bored. And it was cold and miserable in Middle Tennessee where I live. And I said, it's time to write another book. But I wanted to write a book that was quick and easy to read, pithy, and for those folks who really don't like reading money books, but probably should. And it's a book about behavior, not money. I don't talk about products. I don't talk about services. I don't talk about the stock market, any of that stuff. I talk about behavior. And it's called Confessions of a Reformed Financial Advisor. Yep, it's mostly BS. Why? Because it is.
I love that.
And
Okay. Yeah. So tell us then, Ted. So I find this fascinating. Who would think it's our behavior? Who would even recognize we're so used to budgets, the black and white, the bottom line numbers? Tell us about the different behaviors.
yeah, what I discovered, and I really started diving into this for the first book, and the field of behavioral economics and neuroeconomics is relatively new. And what it is a counter to traditional economics. Traditional economics assumes that we're all rational, that we
Mm-hmm.
have perfect information, that given enough data, we will make the correct decision.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how's that working out? Take a look at your garage. Take a look at your closet. Explain to me why you have some of the stuff you have in there. Why do you buy what you do? Why do you have a favorite brand? That's because we're people. So I started delving into this. And what I determined was number one, we accept behavior modification, and coaching in almost every discipline except money. We have a health
Mm.
coach. We have a diet coach. We have a strength coach. We have a coach for a coach and a coach.
That's
And
true.
all of that is to help identify your natural behavior and help you improve upon it to excel in the area you want to move to, except for money. When we move into money, it seems to go in this separate little silo. And all of a sudden, we're going to put our very analytical hat on and we're going to be all of a sudden rational, maybe the first time in our lives, and do the right thing with money. And it's perpetuated by culture
Mm-hmm.
and the industry, which is dedicated to offering products and services and a process that evolved really after World War II and is driven by really old technology. What I couldn't understand is why I had coaches. I was a triathlete for a number of years. I had coaches for
Okay.
coaches. I had a swimming coach, I had a cycling coach, I had a running coach, I had a nutrition coach. That makes sense. But when I went to money, I was on my own. I had to either
That's
read
true.
it, find it, figure it out, or trial and error. And that's not smart. So I sat down and I said, what are the basic causes or what's the conspiracy about helping us spend well? Well, number one, it's our biology. We are here as humans. We're going to do human things all the time, particularly with our money. As a matter of fact, research shows that 95 to 99% of all of our spending is automatic, unconscious, and emotional.
True.
Think about that for a second. Why do you buy what you do? Have you ever gone into a store to buy milk and bread? You jump out of the car and grab a cart and you go to the right-hand door. Why? Because we're in the United States. We do everything on the right side. And what are you faced with? Flowers, deli, bakery. And all you want to do is get milk and bread. But you grab a cart because you always do. And as you start meandering through the store on this scavenger hunt to look for a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread, you find the end cap that has this really cool stuff you've never tried. Maybe there's a sample and you try it. All of a sudden, you're filling your cart
True.
and you get to the checkout and you go, this seems to be a little bit more than I expected. You go out, load everything into your car, you get home and you unloaded it, you look at the receipt and say, my Lord, that's a lot of money. And you forgot the milk and bread. That's a very human behavior. Very
So
human. Or you
true.
go shopping for a gift for somebody and you buy something for yourself. I mean, we do that all the time. All the time. And you have to understand that our culture is really a consumption culture.
True.
It's almost a sport. So realistically, our brain biology is eons old. It developed to do three things very well: keep us alive, chase opportunity, and pass on our genes. It did not evolve to do taxes, read the small print on a credit card, or figure out change. That's a modern behavior. Think about it. Money's only a few thousand years old, and our economy is moving at warp speed. Fundamentally, our biology is not wired to work well in a modern economy with money. It just the way it is. Now, some people are, and ironically, those are the people that move into the money disciplines, accounting, finance, whatever. And the rest of us are kind of out there in the cold. We just have to kind of figure it out. So if you're listening here and the parking valet at Nordstrom's knows your name, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that's a behavior you might want to look into. So first is our biology. Secondly is our values, beliefs, and culture. Our values are a product of where we grew up.
Hmm.
Our beliefs are driven from our values, and culture is now the driver for how we spend. If you don't believe me how you're doing this, I recommend you take a look at your calendar and look at a bank statement. And I want you to do this little drill to figure out if what you truly value, you say you want to take care of your family, legacy, you want to have a comfortable retirement, fine. You want to give to charity, great. All of that takes money. All that takes a commitment, and it's usually out in the future. However, I want you now to take a look at your bank statement and look at your calendar. Where you spend your time, where you spend your money is a good indicator of your default money behavior. And the question I want to ask you is your behavior aligned with your values?
That's a good question. Interesting that you would actually look at your calendar and your bank statement to just see where you're actually depleting your
Yeah,
account while you're out.
because your spending and your calendar is the now. Retirement is eons in the future.
Sure.
Our brains live in the moment. Most cases, we have trouble planning beyond Friday, say nothing of 30, 40 years in the future.
That's
But the key
true.
takeaway here is it doesn't matter what your behavior is, you just have to embrace it. If it's not aligned with your values, one of two things either have to happen. You need to take a look at your values or take a look at your behavior. For most people, if you're really true to your values, you need to have a reckoning and figure out how to adjust your behavior to be more aligned with where you want to go. So if I look at your calendar and you're eating out 3 nights a week and you're spending $1,500 a month on eating out, that's okay. I don't judge. It's not a judgment thing. If that is truly your value, that's fine. But if you also profess to me that you want a comfortable retirement and give money to an orphanage, 30 years down the road and leave money for your grandchildren, we may have a talk, but one or the other is not going to happen. That's what I
Gotcha.
mean by values, money values. And that's foundational. And we never talked about that as a financial advisor. We talked about goals. Goals are different. Goals are based on your values, but goals are usually tangible. Values are usually deeper, emotional, and incredibly important because they drive us. Does that make sense what that difference is?
Yes, it does. And it's interesting to me. We don't maybe connect, okay, we're eating out 3 times a week, that's a value. Maybe we're maybe just think, oh, this is something I enjoy. But what I hear you saying is pay attention to that. That's an indicator of maybe the values that you don't recognize as a value, but that's what you love, that's what you enjoy. But how do we tweak that? How do we adjust that if you have a goal of leaving a legacy, a financial legacy to a nonprofit or to your family? So this is how you help people find their values, to establish the goals and find out what their financial DNA truly is.
Absolutely. And that is incredibly important. And I was never taught that as a financial advisor. Basically, we were taught three goals. It's usually buy a house, get the kids through school, comfortable retirement. Okay. And if you give me enough time, money, rate of return, I can get you any of that.
Hmm.
That's a plus. Let me give you a better metaphor. If you came to me and said, Ted, I'd like to learn how to drive, and I want to drive a stick shift because they're hard to find, but I really want to learn how to drive four on the floor. I said, okay, fine, I can do that, Debbie. Here we go. I'm going to send you a series of YouTube videos. I'm going to send you some engineering diagrams, some physics books, and I'm going to have you test it at the end. And if you pass with 70%, I'm going to give you my car and let you go drive. You're probably going to kill yourself. Or I can sit down and say, Debbie, first, why do you want to drive a stick shift? What is the value of that? Is it for entertainment or do you have to learn how to drive a truck? Okay, that's two different outcomes, but I need to know that out front. Do you need a commercial license or are you going to be a private driver? Okay, fine. I don't need to explain to you the physics and the engineering of the engine. You just need to
Hmm.
know when that light goes on, put gas in it. Okay?
Right,
What
right.
is your intention of driving? How are you under pressure? How are you with stress? Do you have all your physical faculties? Can you reach the pedals? Can you use your left foot with a clutch? Those things are important to know. In a tense situation, how do you react? Then I want to sit down and give you some drills. Then I want to walk you through those drills. I want to watch you perform to mastery. Then I'm going to take you and we're going to start slow in a parking lot. Then we're going to go to a third rate street, come up a little bit more, and then maybe onto the highway. Then at the end, we're going to go through a behavioral test to make sure you can perform and actually drive. Who would you rather drive with?
The person who actually knows how to drive a stick shift.
Absolutely. So what I do is I teach people how to drive with money. And the industry doesn't do go defaults to the technical side, not the behavioral side. Why don't we do that with money? And that's my premise. So when you're understanding your values, that's driving you forward. Then you need to understand your money temperament. Money temperament is nothing more than your natural money behavior. It's your fingerprints, if you will. It's unique to you. If you come from a large family, you've got a spouse, partner, or children that are older that are spending money, I think you know that everybody looks at it a little differently. Everybody has different behaviors. There is not a cookie cutter uniform approach to money.
There isn't really.
However, our culture says there should be. And when we try to fit you into a box that your money
Hmm.
temperament is not wired to, it causes anxiety and failure. For example, if you're not wired to do a budget, it doesn't matter how hard I make you do a budget, you're probably not going to do one. So money temperament is clear, and that's different than goal setting, and that's the behavioral key that nobody's talking about. Then finally, in a consequential spending decision, you need to get the information that's going to work for you and you can assimilate it. It's learning style. Okay, learning modality. Are you visual, auditory, tactile? Meaning, do you like pictures, graphs, arrows, and colors? Then you need that important information given to you in that media. Are you auditory? Then you need it explained to you. You need to be able to talk back and regurgitate that information that you know you understand it. Are you a hands-on type person, tactile? You want to go through the drill yourself. I find it always amazing. Let's say take it when you're going out to buy a new automobile. Very expensive, very major drill. And the human in us says, I love it. I can smell the new car, the dopamine's firing. I can anticipate going into the showroom. I can anticipate going out and driving around and people see me in the new car, probably at 20 miles an hour through the neighborhood. So make sure everybody knows you're there. But marketeers have figured out how to attack the emotional human side of our brains. I call it the feeling brain to get us fired up to buy that new car. Then you go and decide the contract, and it's a completely different environment. Now it's serious. It's
Hmm.
always contracts, it's always technical stuff. And if you're not prepared to understand how you naturally work with money, that's how you end up with a $10,000 navigation system that you probably didn't need in your new car that costs more than you wanted and probably more car than you needed. That's called being human. And I talk about it in the book how you can take steps to prevent that. You do your homework, you make a list, you
Hmm.
have somebody come with you, make sure there's accountability. Then finally, you need a strategy. Your strategy should be value driven, behavioral based, and delivered to you in a way you can
Hmm.
assimilate the information. Then you go out and buy the products and services. In our system, we send you right out to get the products and services, and we discount everything else I've been talking about for 5 or 10 minutes. Which do you think is the better approach? Which do you think at the end you're going to be more successful?
That's a great question. I like the way you're directing them in the direction they should go.
Absolutely. And that's what I call the money behavior system. I found that when I was a selling financial advisor, I got so good at the standard goal product based approach that if I
Hmm.
talked to you on the phone and you told me what your goals were, I had the whole program mapped out in my mind what I was going to do before you even came in.
Sure, before
There's
you
something wrong with
even
that
met the
process.
person. Yeah, because it is. It's very
Absolutely,
personal.
absolutely.
It's very human. We all have different emotions. We all have a different vision for our life. And so I love the way that you're approaching this from a personal, unique perspective, that we need to learn and understand how our emotions do drive our purchases at time, that we'll make decisions. We may be very excited about going on a vacation and we may overspend for the wardrobe to go. And so we're driven by our
Absolutely.
emotions, which is like a great thing. So, and stress also can make us purchase things maybe that we don't need, or maybe, we overbuy for some reason under stress. So to make this, break it down for the audience, what are can you name 5 typical behaviors that we could recognize in ourselves? So we know one would be emotions, stress. What are
Okay, yeah,
some of
yeah,
the
I'll
other
give you.
emotions that we
Yeah,
as
we
people are
call we call these
experiencing?
we call these biases in the field. Let me give you one, and I think it's particularly important in view of what we have in technology. Um, Confirmation bias. That's a behavior. It's a
Okay.
human behavior. As humans, we are herding animals. We like to be with other people just like us. Confirmation bias says when you make a decision, you tend to look around you to your tribe, if you will, and they confirm your decision. So an example that this could be a real problem is online. You go to a Facebook group and you start discussing about what you want to do and what you want to buy. And what you're looking for is confirmation that you're moving in the right direction. You're not looking
Hmm.
for a no generally, you're looking for confirmation. That
Yeah.
is confirmation bias. That can actually cost you a great deal of money. Let's talk about another anchoring. Here's another good one. Anchoring means that you have pots of money and you label them. You've got a vacation pot, you've got a retirement pot, you've got a food pot. I'm not saying this is bad, but if you have a lot of money in the vacation pot, but you're carrying credit card debt at 28%, it makes sense to pool it all together and pay off the most vulnerable piece and then come back and move the money around again. Money doesn't care. It's called fungible. It can be used in a lot of different places, but we tend
Hmm.
to label it. And sometimes we get so emotionally tied to that cruise we're going to take or that vacation, we lose sight of the fact that it's jeopardizing other parts of our daily lives. But what are some other ones? Framing. Oh, well, no, here's a better one. Priming. Priming is where the environment puts us in a spending mood. Priming is what you go to the computer and you're searching online for an item and you find it, but you don't buy it, but it tends to follow you around forever.
Hmm.
And Google knows. They knows and they know you're going to buy it eventually. But some of it can be a little annoying. But what it means is you're already non-consciously primed. When you make a decision to go shopping, let's say in the old days when I was young, you went to the mall. Now you go online quite often, but it doesn't matter. But you make a decision to spend some money.
Hmm.
Non-consciously, you are primed to spend that money, whether you need it or not. So how do you prevent that? Well, first realize that if you go any place that's labeled Galleria, you're going to spend a premium. Let's get over that right up front. And if any place has valet parking, you're probably going to spend a premium.
Hmm.
Also remember that the cruise wear that you bought on the cruise only looks good on the cruise wear.
That's
When you get
true.
off the cruise, it doesn't look quite the same. Just remember that. And you pay a premium for that stuff. So part of it with priming as humans, we have a chemical reaction, what releases a hormone called dopamine. Dopamine is the feel-good drug, and our brains are bathed in it. And it's anticipation of a good experience. The problem with dopamine, it puts us in a buying mood. It puts us in a spending mood. It puts us in the ability to rationalize almost any type of behavior under the right conditions. And that can be dangerous to your wallet. So how do you take care of that? Set very definitive boundaries. When you go shopping, make a list. Here's one that'll save you a fortune. Make a list and go in the left-hand door of the supermarket, go to the left around the bread aisle to dairy, pick it up, and then backtrack. Avoid all those other distractions that are there to make you spend the sights, the smells,
Hmm.
the feeling of being there. It's all there for a reason, and today's marketers are brilliant at making us do that, and they go right to our feeling brain. They trigger dopamine,
Yeah.
puts in a spending mood, and it's not till you get home you go, why did I buy this?
It's so, oh, it happens to everybody. So, what I hear you're saying is we actually have to change our behaviors. Once we understand the behavior behind what we do, then you're saying like, hey, there's some changes you need to make in your behaviors in order to be a better money steward.
Yeah, and what I think the first part is awareness.
Hmm.
First is aware that you're human. You're always going to do human things where you're reacting with other people in your environment, in your economy, and with money. That's a given. If you're wired to be a saver, you tend to get emotional gratification for saving money. If you tend to
Hmm.
be a spender, you have emotional gratification for spending money. I don't judge either one. They're
Right.
both natural behaviors. The question is, how do you manage it?
There you go.
At the extremes, it's just dysfunctional. You can be a dysfunctional spender, you can be a dysfunctional saver. So most people I talk to are kind of gravitate towards the middle. If you tend to enjoy spending, that's fine. Then take proactive steps to make it harder to spend and easier to save. You have automatic withdrawals that go into your savings account, checking account, and investments. You understand that when you take an action, there are consequences. So here's a good story. I had a client a number of years ago that she was making very good money. I mean, she was netting about $200,000 a year. And when I was talking to her in profiler, I said, "You're naturally wired as a saver. I mean, I'm sorry, naturally wired as a spender." And she took some offense to that. That can't be. I'm actually saving for retirement. Well, she's making $200,000 gross and she's saving about $6,000 a year.
Oh, goodness.
I said, "Where's the rest of it?"
Yeah.
So what we did is I put her on a program that we put everything on autopilot. It came out before a certain day of the month, and I told her anything from this date of the month on is yours. Do whatever you choose. But the other stuff is taken care of. On the other side of the extreme, we sometimes had to sit down and explain that being stingy or a hyper saver is also dysfunctional. And that sometimes can be a tougher lift and a bit more of a
Hmm.
nudge, but explain to people that you are hurting maybe other people because you're not doing certain things with money, even though
Absolutely.
you think in the long run you're taking care of them. So there are a number of behaviors you need to take care of. What I like to do is keep it common sense. We make this all too hard. And I think the financial industry as a whole makes it
Hmm.
overcomplicated. We get focused on the product of the day, realizing that if you have a modern phone, tablet, or computer, you have more power to spend, save, and invest than ever in human history,
Oh, I
which is
agree.
a powerful place to be, but
Mhm.
it can be used for good and it can be used to ruin your life. What you need to do first is understand what truly is important about money to you. You need to ask yourself, what's important about this? And then if you say, well, I need a new car, what's important about that automobile? It's transportation. Well, having transportation is different than having a $100,000 automobile.
Exactly.
You can have a $100,000 automobile, but you really want it for something different.
Hmm.
Okay?
Hmm.
So you've got to be honest about that. And that's what I mean, the value discussion. What is truly important about money to you? And if you don't achieve that goal, is it going to cause anxiety, emotional trauma, or hurt for
Hmm.
you and your family? Then be honest with who you are. In the book, I have some very simple exercises. And when I work with clients or coaching, I have a little bit more deeper dive. But some of the basic questions are you a spender or saver? Are you risk adverse or risk taker? That's important. And if you're in a relationship, are you both wired the same way? That can be a problem.
Yeah.
Are you a delegator or do you do it yourself? That's important.
Very.
How much do you really know about money? What's your
Mm.
emotional intelligence with money? That all comes together to build a profile of who you are. Now, here's another important tip. Embrace it. Because
Oh.
I know that is how you're naturally wired, and the odds of
Mhm.
you changing that is probably going to be very, very difficult. It's frustrating to you, it's frustrating to the people you're working with. I mean,
Mhm.
if you're not wired to do a budget, you're not a detailed person, you don't want to do it yourself, and you come in and see me and I give you a document that's an inch thick, an 8-point font, and it's all how-to stuff to categorize to write down every dollar and penny you spend for the next 30 days, you're probably going to be successful for about 48 hours, if that
Right.
long.
I would
After
run.
that, yeah, after that it becomes scratch pad and you never do it. I had a number of clients that spent a lot of money on financial plans, a
Hmm.
lot of money, and they were solid plans, but they were not aligned with the client. They did not respect their natural behavior. They did not expect their temperament. They might have on paper achieve what was important to them, their values and goals, but because of the way it was structured, they would never be able to execute it on their own. That's a problem. And I find that a lot of the advice that is out there is good advice, but you have to ask, can I do it? I know a lot of talking heads and gurus and experts that have made a lot of money doing things. And in most of their approaches, I want to make you just like me. Well,
Oh,
you've got to ask yourself, are you
mhm.
just like that person? Is the context the same? Is the behavior the same? Can you actually do some of the things they're asking you to do? If you can, great. You found a good coach, you found somebody you can work with and make it happen. But in most cases, when you're talking to a group of people, anywhere from 60 to 70% are wired differently than you are.
Oh, yeah.
So it
We're all
doesn't
so
make
different.
sense to
Yeah.
go, yeah, it doesn't make it sense to have a cookie cutter program. And the entire industry is founded on the cookie cutter concept.
And that's why it's such a struggle. People run when they hear, oh, I have to have a budget. Oh, that's going to constrict who I am, how I'm enjoying my life. But I hear what you're teaching. You're helping people become of their own behavioral style, who they really are, how they use
Yep.
their money, teach them how they could use it better, but still being who they are. And actually, that would be more enjoyable and more interesting to discover other than just the black and white traditional way of doing finances. And I went to your website and
Absolutely.
I thought I would read some of these off. It was you have fix the self-sabotage in 5 easy steps. And one of them was first spot the triggers behind your why did I do that spending, which I know you
Mhm.
referred to. Align your money decisions with your real values, not your fantasies.
Mhm.
Work with your money temperament instead of fighting it, which I think is it's a pearl of wisdom right there. And then to build a learning approach that sticks. In other words, whatever plan you help them come up with, that it's something they continually do. It's their own learning approach. And then turn the plan into small, repeatable habits that create security. And so, yeah, it's all about the habits too that you help people create. So that's something they can
Yeah,
be consistent in.
habits are formed over time based on your values and behavior, and little steps are
Mhm.
much more effective. I
Absolutely.
mean, think about it. How many people have been on a diet? Your diet's successful when it's a change of behavior day at a time, day at a time. And there are lots of different ways to lose weight. You need to find the way that works for you.
That's a great example because
And
one
that's the
diet doesn't
challenge.
work for another person as it does for someone else. And so, I have just loved everything that you have shared today. There's so much to this. It's a whole nother approach to
Mhm.
embrace the way that we spend, discover more about ourselves. And so people can go to your website and is there an assessment that they take there or do they
Absolutely.
find this in your book?
I've got a couple of courses. Well, if you purchase the book, there's a code in there to get an introduction course for free.
Oh,
And
great.
the book is available on Amazon, either digital or paperback.
And what's the name of the
Um,
book again?
Confessions of a Reformed Financial Advisor.
There you go.
Okay. Um, what I want to give you is control of your spending. I want to give you control
Mhm.
of your life with regard to how you take these limited resources and use them effectively and efficiently. The whole concept of economics is how you allocate scarce resources. Okay, that's the technical term.
Right.
Basically, is how do you interact to get the things you need and how do you make decisions that impact you and the people around you on a daily basis. Money is the common denominator of a modern society. We don't talk about it the way I talk about it. We talk about it in this unique little box that sits over on the side, and you go address it once a month or once a year when you do taxes, or if you've got an
Mhm.
advisor that annual or
Right.
every 6 months when you have a call. But it needs to be a daily part of your life. If you are understand that you're into fitness, for example, That means you're doing something daily or a couple times a week to keep you physically fit. You need that same mindset with your money.
Hmm.
Physical fitness with an F and physical fitness with a PH. The process is basically the same, and it begins by knowing yourself. Okay, I'll use my example as a triathlete. A triathlete is a ridiculous sport.
That's
It's a two and a
incredible
half
that you were a
mile.
triathlete. That's
Yeah, it's a
incredible.
2.5 mile
Wow.
swim followed by a 112-mile bike ride and a
Whew.
26-mile run. That's a full day.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, I'm out there burning 5,000 calories a day. So if I came back and I asked you to eat the same way I was eating after that kind of workout, you would double in size. So I would not
absolutely.
be a good example because you didn't know what I was doing. You say, "Oh wow,
Mhm.
you're very lean." Well, there's a reason for that. I'm doing crazy things to my body, which I don't think my body's really designed to do. Okay. You need to have a reality check. Who are you? What is important about money to you? If it's truly important, what behaviors are moving you in that direction? If you want to move in that direction, what guardrails do you have in place that accommodate who you are to make sure that you're living within your comfort zone? There's going to be a little pain because, yeah, this is what you really want. It means you may have to give
Mhm.
up a little golf, or you may have to live eating out, or you may have to take a hard look at your closet. But the reality is, as humans, long-range planning is not something we're real comfortable with. We tend to live in the now. 48 hours, 72 hours a week, we get beyond that, it gets a little fuzzy. We also tend to have this natural aversion to emotional pain. So if you make something, you have a plan, and it is so difficult to live with, you're not going to do it.
Well, yeah,
And
we'll
you have
avoid
to
it.
remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll avoid it at all cost.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I always bite my tongue around January, December, January, when we get that whole cycle in the news, getting ready for the new year, New Year's resolutions. We're going to get our money under control, first time in our lives in 30 days. That is filler. The question is, will it work? I
Right.
don't know because I don't know you. And this is why it's so important. I can't sit here and pontificate and tell you you've got to do this, that, and the other thing without knowing the context and who you are behaviorally. That is the importance. If you're in a relationship, most likely everybody in that relationship has a different money temperament. If you're in a family, there are multiple money temperaments. I had a call this afternoon with somebody who's got 4 kids, and all 4 kids deal money, adult children deal with money differently.
I believe that.
Here's something else that's ironic. Even though you do it differently, you can be just as successful. I had a client a number of years back who had a PhD in statistics, worked for the Atomic Energy Commission. He walked in and he had 4 or 5 binders, and he could account for every penny he'd ever earned and how he'd spent it.
Incredible.
And he said, "I am incredibly rational." And we got into a long, kind of heated discussion about telling him that he was saving emotionally, and he was emotionally arguing with me that he's not emotional.
Oh, okay.
That is a very human reaction.
Yeah.
Very human. And he is very successful. And he was successful. But I also have other people that delegate everything. They are spenders. Everything is delegated. But they have what I call a one size fits you program. A one size fits you
Mm.
program can still move towards the same end goal or value. It just goes a different way. It's like going on a trip in a car. I live in Nashville. If I want to go to Charleston, which is due east, a little bit south, which is a wonderful city, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
There are a
Been there.
number of ways to get there. I can fly. I can take the bus. I can actually take the train. I can drive. I
Mhm.
can drive through Atlanta, which I don't recommend, or I can go a little bit farther south and come across 16. All I'm saying is, at the end of the day, did everybody get to Savannah? That's what we're looking at. How you get there is not nearly as important as you know where you're going, your values, you know how you're going to get there, your behavior, and you do it in a way that works for you. Visual, auditory, tactile. And trust me, if you're meeting four friends in Savannah at a delightful seafood restaurant on the coast, down at the old part of the city, recommend the shrimp and grits. We don't talk about how you got there. You're there. So your mindset is my values, I'm in the moment. That's where I want to be. That's where I am. Then
Mm-hmm.
you come backwards to say, what behaviors are either making it difficult to get there or making it easy to get there? And then you need to do an assessment. Is that behavior good or bad? That's maybe too strong a word. Is that behavior conducive to where I want to go? Does it support my values, or is that behavior holding me back and is going to cause me anxiety in the future?
Great questions.
So I don't like dealing with the normative. However, my job is to sit down, and this is what I used to do with my clients. I get to know you. My job is to help you understand to discover, uncover, and release your natural money temperament. And if you do it correctly, just like most everything else in your life that is behavioral based, you're going to be happier, you're going to be much more successful, and you're going to have a program that is sustainable.
Well, Ted, I just totally love your approach on finances. And it's almost like a relief to know that there's another way to do this, evaluating yourself and really getting to where you want to be in a better way that you can actually enjoy and discover more about yourself. And so I have so enjoyed having you here today. It's been such valuable information. And I'm going to have all of your information in my show notes. But what would be the best way for people to connect with you if they want to learn more?
TedMcLyman.com. That's my site. That's the name of my company, and that's who I am. It's just easier. I just think Lyman with a Mick. I've got a lot of tools there. If you go to Amazon, the book is there. Here's one quick tip, and I know it'll save you a fortune. If you took a picture of me right here on the screen and you put that on your phone, before you go to a consequential spending moment, you look at that picture, and I will save you money. Just that.
I
Just that
love
mental
that.
trigger will go, whoa, I don't know who this guy is, but I know I'm not supposed to be doing what I'm doing.
There you go. Accountability. I love that. That is great. And I was going to ask you for a final thought to our audience, but I think that was it. And I think that is just perfect. So thank you, Ted, for being here and sharing so much. And again, the book can be found on Amazon. Can you tell us again the title of the book?
Confessions of a Reformed Financial Advisor.
There you go. I love that word reformed. And you've definitely transitioned out of the old way into the new.
Absolutely.
Oh, well,
Absolutely.
thank you for being here with us today on the Transition Bridge podcast. And I want to thank my transition tribe for coming in each and every week. You know, there's even purpose and power in the way that we are preparing for retirement, for things that we want to um, have a part of our life. And maybe you're a giver and you want to know how to use that gift better. Even that is something to learn. How we can use our money better to be a giver who's making an impact in the world. There's so much that you can learn from Ted. So I highly recommend that you check out his website. It's really a great website. I went through it myself. You're going to learn a lot about yourself just going through all of his information. Get his book, connect with Ted, and it's time for all of us to understand our own behaviors so our finances can actually serve us better.